Was that due to weather?
Yeah, a couple issues there. Early, you get backed up, you're far away, headset goes out. There's some things there when it's real cold. We just got to be better as a collective group. There's not one person at fault. There's not one player at fault, one coach at fault. We just got to be better as a collective group. All shoulder the blame. That starts with me to make sure that everybody's communicating the way we need to.
I've covered this league for years, and I've never seen anything like this. What you're about to hear almost never went public. Inside one NFL building, decisions were made that could have changed a quarterback's entire career, decisions that might have been wrong. And the man at the center? Shedeur Sanders. But it wasn't just him under pressure. There's someone else, someone calling the plays. And the story you're about to hear was never meant to reach you. It started quietly in Cleveland, just after last Sunday's game. The scoreboard didn't tell the full story. Shedeur Sanders had stepped onto the field, a rookie quarterback already carrying expectations that felt impossible. But the insiders, the coaches, analysts, scouts noticed something strange. Some plays called for him didn't match what the defense was showing. Patterns were misread. Opportunities vanished before they even appeared. And the man calling those plays? Tommy Reese, a coach trusted by the team. A man whose decisions were supposed to protect, not jeopardize, a rookie's confidence.
Yeah, it's similar to what we talked about a week ago. I think you got to allow the defense and your eyes and your progression, bless you, take you to where the ball is supposed to be, take you where the completion is supposed to be. So I think, you're not going to get it all back in one play. And I think, I read this week, Kevin O'Connell was talking about J.J. McCarthy, and I think he was talking about finding completions, and that's an area to improve upon, and an area that he has improved upon. And so many times when we have players on the outside, players that if we get their ball in their hands, some things can be created that way. I think it's continuing to harp on those and, again, follow the defense and allow them to help dictate where the ball should end up, and listen to your feet and eyes as you're working your progressions.
Behind closed doors, tension had been building for weeks. Assistant coaches whispered concerns in hallways. Film rooms became battlegrounds. Questions hung over the franchise like smoke. Was this a case of miscommunication, or was there something deeper? Something nobody wanted the public to know. Every snap Sanders took carried more weight than anyone outside the organization realized. Because while the fans saw a game, insiders saw what could have been a career-altering mistake, a moment where trust was tested, authority was questioned, and silence became a dangerous weapon. And what you're about to witness isn't a highlight reel. It's a story of pressure, misaligned power, and a rookie forced to navigate a labyrinth that could have ended before it truly began. The story begins not under the glare of stadium lights, but in quiet meeting rooms and shadowed film sessions. Weeks before anyone in Cleveland would speak publicly about it, Shedeur Sanders was already under a microscope. Every throw, every decision, every snap was analyzed, not just for completion, but for what it revealed about the system he had been thrust into. It started with the simplest signs, plays that didn't match the defensive alignment, subtle hesitations in the pocket, missed windows that were otherwise open. On paper, these might have looked like rookie mistakes, but insiders knew better. There was a pattern. Something behind the curtain was influencing him, something that shouldn't have been. Tommy Reese, the man responsible for calling plays, became the first piece of the puzzle. Trusted, experienced, someone who had navigated NFL offenses for years, but now, quietly, questions began to surface. Was he making the right reads? Were the signals being relayed clearly? Or had a chain of decisions shifted, leaving Sanders exposed in situations that even a seasoned veteran would struggle to manage? By midweek, whispers began in the building. Analysts in the film room noticed inconsistencies. One assistant would point out, "That shouldn't have been the call there." Another would pause the tape, shake their head, and repeat it. The pattern was undeniable. The quarterback was being set up in ways that amplified pressure rather than reducing it. And with every critical snap, the stakes rose. Sanders was adapting, learning, adjusting, but the pressure on him was mounting faster than the game clock ever could. The coaching staff, torn between trust and accountability, had a difficult choice. intervene publicly and risk chaos, or let the film speak quietly and hope that the young quarterback could navigate the mistakes unscathed. It was a fragile balance. Every misstep wasn't just a yard lost, it was credibility lost. Every hesitation wasn't just a delay, it was a question. Could Sanders survive in this environment, or was the system stacked against him? And in those early weeks, nobody outside the building would ever see the tension. The public narrative would be a game summary, a stat line, perhaps a few critical tweets, but the real story was unfolding behind closed doors. By the end of chapter 1, it was clear that something had shifted in the power dynamic. Sanders wasn't just a rookie learning the system. He was a quarterback forced into the spotlight under conditions nobody had fully prepared him for. And the question lingered heavy in the air: who would take responsibility if things went wrong? By the time the second week of film sessions rolled around, the pressure had escalated. What had once been small hesitations now became glaring inconsistencies. Insiders began to notice that play calls were increasingly misaligned with what Sanders was seeing on the field. The rookie was making adjustments in real time, but the system he relied on, the play calling, the signals from Tommy Reese was betraying him in subtle, dangerous ways. It wasn't just about X's and O's. It was about control, authority, and trust. Reese's decisions, made under intense scrutiny from both the coaching staff and front office, began to fracture. Some assistants quietly questioned the logic behind certain calls. Others debated whether Sanders had the freedom to audible, to take ownership of the moment, or if he was being confined to a rigid structure that didn't match reality. Leaks started surfacing, not to the public, but within the organization. Small admissions, whispered during film reviews, that shouldn't have been called. He didn't have a chance. One coordinator's quiet voice in a back hallway carried the weight of unspoken acknowledgement. The rookie was being set up for failure in ways that no stat sheet would ever capture. Sanders, aware of the mistakes but trusting the system, pressed on. He adapted, communicated, and tried to mask the growing uncertainty. But the cracks were widening. A single misread on the line, a late adjustment, a wrong signal could cascade into a mistake visible to fans, commentators, and analysts. And insiders watched with an anxious mix of admiration and dread. This was no longer just about a young quarterback learning the ropes. It was about a franchise under pressure, with authority figures weighing consequences and a single series of decisions that could irreversibly impact careers. Reese's play calling had become a silent antagonist, shaping outcomes in ways nobody outside the building could understand. By the midpoint of the season, quiet discussions were happening in offices far from the stadium. Who had the ultimate responsibility for these breakdowns? How much of it was Sanders' learning curve, and how much was an orchestrated misstep from within the system? The conversation was tense, reluctant, but one fact emerged clearly. The situation was volatile, fragile, and the next game could tip the balance entirely. Every film session, every meeting, every whispered exchange added layers to the pressure. Sanders' resilience was tested, Reese's authority was questioned, and the front office watched silently, knowing that this story, this pressure cooker, was escalating toward a climax that might never be fully contained. The tension was building. And as insiders prepared for the next matchup, one thing became undeniable. What happened on the field was not just football. It was a collision of trust, power, and hidden mistakes, and unfolding drama that, if exposed, could rewrite the narrative of an entire season. The moment of reckoning arrived quietly, behind closed doors, far from the stadium lights. Every misaligned play, every hesitation, every subtle failure on the field traced back to one source: the instructions Shedeur Sanders had been given. Tommy Reese, trusted, experienced, and respected, had been calling plays that, intentionally or not, set the rookie up for pressure that no young quarterback should face. Film sessions revealed the truth in stark relief. Plays designed for certain defensive reads were consistently misaligned. Timing windows vanished. Protection schemes broke down at critical moments. Sanders wasn't failing. He was performing under conditions engineered against him. Even the most casual fan, looking only at stats, would never understand. But inside the organization, the truth was undeniable. The consequences were immediate. Confidence, always fragile for a rookie, was tested every snap. Analysts debated publicly about a stat line that didn't tell the real story. Internally, trust between coach and quarterback was shaken. Front office executives questioned leadership decisions. And for Sanders, every practice, every game became an exercise in resilience, learning to navigate a system that had, unknowingly or otherwise, undermined him. But the story doesn't end with blame. It exposes a systemic issue. A franchise entrusted with developing talent allowed miscommunication and poor oversight to dictate outcomes. The ripple effect was profound. Player confidence, coaching credibility, and organizational integrity all came under pressure simultaneously. And now, as the season continues, the questions remain. How much power does a single coach hold over a rookie's trajectory? How easily does silence allow mistakes to compound? And most importantly, who in the NFL hierarchy is truly accountable when trust is broken behind the scenes? This is the reality Shedeur Sanders faced. Not the stat sheets, not the headlines, but the hidden pressures of a system that almost broke him. And as fans, we only see the outcome. But the truth, the full story was never meant to be exposed. It's time to ask ourselves, when authority fails, when decisions are hidden, and when silence reigns, who truly holds power in the NFL? And how many careers hang in the balance, waiting for a revelation that may never come? The questions aren't comfortable. They aren't easy, but they demand answers. And for those willing to look beyond the surface, the story of Shedeur Sanders and the plays he was given reveals the hidden truth of a league under pressure.